Live, we're live. Live on the tinterwebs. Live again. This is the most streams I've did in a week for a long time. Aren't you guys lucky? Aren't you guys lucky? So it is Friday night or Friday afternoon. Could be Friday morning where you are, but where I am in Scotland, it's annoyingly hot. Which I don't mind it being warm, I don't mind the temperature being good, but it's ridiculous. I've been taking 2 showers every day the last few days. But I managed to get out in the sunshine, got my pale skin out in the sun, so I guess that's a good thing. So there's a few things I want to talk about today, Friday night, Friday afternoon. I want to talk about a brand new PC gaming handheld, something I actually covered on my other YouTube channel. I want to talk about that. It's the Valve Steam Deck, and not to be confused with the Steam Deck is the Stream Deck, which is one of these, and that is what helps me turn my lights on and off and all that. Well, 2 of the lights, and Elgato have released a new version of that. They've also released a new web camera, and they've also released a new microphone and some other accessories and all that as well. Elgato obviously are a company that is from Corsair, so it's just you know, the gaming side of Corsair, but they've released quite a few different products in their product launch yesterday, so I'd like to talk about that. I think that will be relevant to some of you, especially if you're, you know, doing YouTube, if you're doing Twitch, if you're doing any kind of game streaming or streaming online, or you know, even just for friends or Facebook or something. So I'll talk about that in a bit as well, and as usual, you know, if there's some discussions that come up from all of you, then we'll talk about that as well. So I'll give you a sneaky peek. I'll just change this for a second. Is that? Just might double check that's okay. So I'll give you a sneaky peek of the Steam Deck, not the Stream Deck, the Steam Deck. First time catch me live. Hey Dylan, good to see you. So you're getting to watch it live, you're getting to see all the mistakes live, no editing, nothing is going to be polished here. I'm going to misspeak, I'm going to mess up. That is the nature of live streaming. So what I've got here is my Nintendo Switch, which right now is basically just for me to play Zelda. And you can see I am about to do a shrine there. Now, the Switch is okay. It's good. There's a lot of good games on it. Maybe not great third-party games on it. But Nintendo are obviously releasing the new version of this, which has an OLED display. And an OLED display is great. And they fixed the stand. I mean, I talked about this the other day. I don't know if you've got a Switch still in, but the new Switch has got a new stand, right? But really, look at how pathetic that is for a stand. Considering the weight of this, look at how flimsy that is. Now, they've come out with a stronger stand, which is great, but not to be too critical, but why didn't they have a stronger stand from day one? You know what I mean? Like, why did they have this stupid thing for years? Why didn't they just come out with a better stand from the start? Same, the new version has an Ethernet port. The old one didn't. 10 years, you know, the Switch came out 10 years or so after the PlayStation 3 and other consoles which had an Ethernet connection, didn't have an Ethernet port in the dock. So, you know, Nintendo's new variation of the Switch, it's nice that they've got an OLED screen, but I really wish they did a little bit more. I would have liked them to do, you know, a few more additional upgrades, but that's just me. But there we go. But the reason I'm talking about the Nintendo Switch is because of the Steam Deck. So this is, hey Floody Sons. So to me, this is one of the most interesting handhelds that's been announced over the last few years. And it's not perfect in my opinion. There are some things about this which I think they should have done a little bit differently. We can talk about that. But this does look very interesting. And certainly if you're a PC gamer you know, if you want to play your games in the Move, in the past, it's been gaming laptop, and that's it. That's all, you know, the only option you've really had. But this new Stream Deck is coming out, and you can see the UK price here, £349. It's coming out December 2021. Now, I'll talk about that, the price and all that. But really, I just want to leave this here. Give me your thoughts on this, guys. I want to hear your opinion on this. Do you think that this looks good? Do you think this looks good? Give me your initial thoughts on it, and then I'll give you mine. So, I'm just giving you some time to take it in. Some time, you know, to simmer. Right, so when I first saw this, I was intrigued. It's not too heavy. This is about 669 grams or something, so it's not too heavy. Not super light, but it's a good weight for traveling. You know, maybe what you'd get with an iPad or something. You get about 7 to 8 hours of battery life. I can't wait for the only thing is a cheap Opicon is only like 50 gigabytes. Oh, the cheap option is 60. Yeah, after the OS is installed. Yeah. I'll show you the price. I'll show you the storage options in a minute, Dylan. Yeah, the initial one's got 64 gigabyte, but it's eMMC. So if I just stick to the actual device, right, the 7-inch touchscreen looks good. It's like a 1280 by 800 pixel resolution, which seems low, but for a 7-inch screen, you know, when you're trying to get the right balance between battery life and, you know, a nice resolution, a nice display, I can live with that type of resolution on a 7-inch display. And they've also, if you look here, they've got a touchpad there. You can see there's a touchpad here over this side, and there's a touchpad here. And then you've obviously got your L3 and your R3 controls, and then you've got your A, B, X, Y, kind of like the Xbox buttons. Now, the first thing that I thought of when I saw that was, look at the position of that D-pad. Look at that position right up there. So this is the thing. I'm not critical of Valve's decision to do this, because basically what they're trying to do is design a handheld that's, you know, good for games that, you know, a lot of people might use a game controller like this or like this, but a lot of people will, you know, be playing all their Steam games with a keyboard and a mouse, and they're trying to replicate that in a handheld. It doesn't always work, and it's very difficult to keep everyone happy, which is why they've put the touch pads in the middle. But I'm not sure if this is the ideal layout. I'm not sure. What I will say though is, this looks like it would be awful for playing Street Fighter on. It would be absolutely awful. Any kind of 2D fighting game. And many other games as well. Platform games that require the D-pad, I suspect it's not going to be great. Minor thing maybe, but I guess it's one of, I'm trying not to be too critical, because I think they've got most of the important stuff right, and I do realise they're trying to make games that are, you know, a handheld that's suitable for PC games. So they've got an AMD 4-core 8-thread CPU in there, and, you know, architecture's got the GPU as well. That's a better look at the handheld there. That gives you a better look at it, and you can see that there's a Steam button. There's also I think that's a view button. I think that's an options button. Can't remember what that is. I'll double check that button there. But it's in the specs page. That tells you what button that is. That is options. That one is quick access. So there's a host of different buttons there. But what you were talking about, Dylan, was the price. So I did talk about this in my other YouTube channel today, but I'll go over what I was saying. So there's 3 different options here, right? 3 different options, and they're saying 3 different storage options. But it's not, like, you know, it says there's no in-game difference in frame rates, and all 3 models come with this carry case, which looks like a hard case, which looks like a really good case actually. But they're saying 3 storage options, but there's more differences here as well. If you look at it here, you can see that it's 64 gigabytes, and then you have the Steam OS, you know, to come off that. But the key thing here is that it's eMMC internal storage. Now, that basically means that, I mean, the eMMC format is effectively an SD card type of thing inside the drive, and it's used by a lot of systems because it's so small. It's super small. But read and write speeds, I suspect you'll get 100, 150, 200 megabytes per second at a push. It's not going to be fast, certainly not compared to the next version. And if you look up, you pay an extra £110 and you get 256 gigabytes of storage, which is more practical, but you get an NVMe SSD. Now that's a Gen 3 SSD, so it's a Gen 3 SSD, and my guess is you'll get a minimum of 1000 megabytes per second reading and writing, but it could go up to like 3000. I don't know, I've not seen any reviews that talk about that. And then you've got the last one, another £110, and that's doubling the storage to 512 gigabytes. You've got the fast NVMe SSD, but you've also got anti-glare etched glass there. And then you've got some other Steam community profile things that, I mean, does it really matter? I don't think it does. So there it is, that is the Steam Deck. Now, as far as the hardware goes, you've got the, there's the D-pad, you've got your thumbsticks, you've got your triggers, L1, L2, R1, R2, but there's also these kind of, you can see it there in that picture, you've got these grip buttons at the back as well. So you've got L1, L2, R1, R2 at the top, then you've got your thumbsticks, which is L3 and R3, but then at the back you've got L4, L5, and at the other side you've got R4 and R5. I'm not sure how games are going to take advantage of that. I'm not sure how it's going to feel. It's like having some buttons here at the back here. It's not too bad a position actually when I think about it. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how games are going to utilize that, but it's a nice little addition, and it looks like they've kind of sneaked the buttons into an area that hopefully won't affect the way that you hold it. 7-inch touchscreen. It's got gyro. It's got trackpads as well. 78 hours of gameplay. I mean, it really does look impressive when you see it. I realise there's some other things out there just now. Hey, Saucy. It's available in 10 minutes. I can double check, Dylan. I can go back to this in a few minutes and check. So some other specs here. Hi-Fi audio, 40 watt-hour battery, which is 78 hours of battery life. It's got a USB Type-C connection. It's expandable. There's a separate dock that you can buy. It's wireless, Bluetooth, and there's fast suspend and resume. It's got a micro SD card as well. This video here in the background shows you theoretically how you could use it. You could set up a room where you just plug this into your monitor, into the dock or whatever, and that's you've got your keyboard and mouse attached, and then you can take it to work. You can use it in the bus and the train or something. I do like what they're trying to do here. One of the things I really like, yeah, not to get confused with the Stream Deck, which I'll also talk about. I do like what they're trying to do here, and I do like the Steam platform. I like the Steam platform because, well, one reason is because games are so cheap. You've got tens of thousands of games, but there's so many classic PC games from years ago. There's so many been, re-released, and there's a lot of classic games that are like $1, $5, like super, super cheap. Yes, the new games are there. They tend to hold the price, but there's something for everyone here. So I do like the idea of this, and you can see how they've plugged in a few extra controllers. Yeah, I do like the idea of this. I think the concept is really good. And then it's running on SteamOS. Now I'll have a look at the tech specs. I don't want to get bogged down on it too much. It doesn't always tell you the full story. You can see there's 2 microphones here at the front. You've got left and right speaker. There's the trackpads, etc. Volume, headphone jack. There's a fan, Type-C connection. Your micro SD card slot is down here. So you can see that it's using the AMD architecture. 4 cores, 8 threads, 2.4 to 3.5 gigahertz, 16 gigabytes of LDDR5 RAM. Only draws 4 to 15 watts as well. It's Gen 2. Don't know what I'm talking about here. Gen 2, Gen 2 for the 64 gigabyte eMMC storage, but the 256 and 512 models are NVMe SSDs, which are Gen 3. So you're going to get X4 speeds. But like I said, because it's a handheld, I'm not sure if that's going to be like 1000 to 2000 megabytes per second rather than at the upper end. So it's got a 16:10 aspect ratio, 1280 by 800 pixels. It's a 7-inch display. It's touchscreen, but one thing that I think they should have done better with here is that it's got a 60 Hz display. 60 Hz. And this is somewhere where I think they really could have got one up on the Switch and anything else that's out there just now. Even some gaming, you know, maybe some people going towards a gaming laptop, and if this had a 120 Hz display, they would have maybe went for the Steam Deck instead. Now, you can use the Steam Deck, you can plug it into your monitor, you know, like you saw on the homepage there, and you can plug it in. You can get a higher resolution, you can get a higher frame rate, but when you're playing in handheld mode, you're going to be limited to 60 Hz. Now, that's annoying because if you're playing certain games like Counter-Strike, which don't really use a lot of graphical power, you'd be able to get more than 120 Hz from this little system, easy. So I know that certain games won't be able to get more than 60 Hz, you know, depending on the graphical settings, but I really would have loved them to have put 120 Hz in there, even just for an option. Even if certain games are super slow, I really would have liked to have seen that. Even if it was a premium option, only for the most expensive model, that would have been good. Hey Viper Man, I don't think you can configure it, Stephen. I don't think so. I've not seen anything that suggests that you can. So it's UHS1 for speeds. I would have liked to have seen UHS2. You know, if I got one of the, have I got one here? Yes, I do. So UHS2. Here's an example of a UHS2 SD card. Now this is an SD card and not a micro SD card, but that's a UHS2, which gives you much faster read and write speeds. So UHS1 is a little bit slower. So I don't know how that works, if maybe for certain games you have to transfer it from the micro SD storage to your main system, and then the micro SD just acts as your, you know, your game library. I'm not sure. Yeah, you can add a micro SD card, but it's UHS1. USB Type-C with DisplayPort 1.4. Supports up to 8K at 60 Hz, 4K at 120 Hz, USB 3.2 Gen 2. So that's quite good, but I still think they should have went with 120 Hz for the display. I really do think they should have done that. But it doesn't seem too thick. It doesn't seem too heavy. And that's another thing as well. Maybe I've not talked about that enough, but you can also plug it into, you know, a monitor and just use it like a computer. You can just use it, check your email or do whatever. You've got KDE Plasma. There's a dock as well. It's got a USB Type-C connection, HDMI 2.0, DisplayPort 1.4. It's got an Ethernet. I would have liked to have seen 2.5 or 5 gigabit Ethernet, but there you go. USB 3.1, and then you've got two USB 2.0 for your keyboard and mouse. What do you guys think about it then? I'll go back to the home page just to remind you of the price. I'll refresh the page. I don't think it's available to buy yet. But there's the prices, if I bring it up. So there's the prices. I mean, I would avoid that. I would avoid that first model. I think you're going to run into too many problems. I think there's going to be a lot of games that are going to be too slow. I think at the very least you have to go for this middle option. The very least, even if you don't get the glass here. I wonder, you know, maybe there are some questions. No problem, Dylan. No problem, mate. Thanks for dropping by. Right to repair means you can open it. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how easy it will be to do that. It'd be great if people can do that. If you can open it up. You know, see if you're talking at about £300 for the Nintendo OLED edition, and then, you know, the accessories, and then the cost of Nintendo games as well. You know, the games for the Nintendo Switch aren't cheap, whereas with the Steam platform, there's a lot of games that are free. You know, all the games that are free for the Nintendo Switch, the majority of them are pretty poor, apart from like Rocket League and Apex, etc. you know, Apex doesn't run great on that. £569. It's interesting. Do you know what I mean? It's like I've said this a few times. I've been looking for, you know, I've been looking to buy a gaming laptop this year because I sold my last gaming laptop a few months ago. But could I replace a gaming laptop with this and just keep my regular laptop? I don't know. You know, the thing that I guess one downside is that you can only play on Steam, and you know, over the last year or so, we've seen Battle.net, you know, getting exclusives for the Call of Duty games. You've got Epic Games. You've got, what's the one, Origin, that, you know, for Apex and different games like that from EA. So there are certain games that's not going to be on Steam. So I guess you lose a little bit of flexibility if you're limiting yourself to just Steam. It doesn't have all the games. That's what I'm saying. You know, there's certain games that you're still going to have an advantage of with a gaming laptop because you can install any PC game at all, any retro game, anything, whereas this you're limited to Steam. But Steam has a huge catalogue, and if most of your games are on Steam, if you're playing games, Steam games all the time, you might want to lean towards something like this instead of buying a gaming laptop. The fact this can do up to 4K 120Hz via the Type-C connection is quite impressive as well. So yeah, it's interesting. It kind of caught me by surprise. I've seen this kind of handheld rumoured for years, but then nothing came out. And I've watched, you know, reviews of the GPD, you know, the GPD Win devices, but they've always felt a little bit too hybridy for me. You know, I know hybridy isn't a word, but you know what I mean? They've kind of been in between a kind of handheld Windows computer rather than a pure gaming platform. That was just weird Frankenstein monster type handhelds, and they were quite expensive as well. Some of those systems were the best part of $1,000 depending on which version that you got. It's not perfect. I really don't like what this D-pad is. I really would have preferred a 120Hz display, especially, you know, given the fact it's 2021. It's not coming out to the end of 2021. You know, if you're going to be using this for the next 3 years, 60Hz already feels dated. So, yeah, I think they've missed a mark there, but I do like this concept. I really do like what they're trying to do with it. I don't know if you would want Windows on it, though. Well, some people might want Windows on it, but I think staying with is the KDA. There's a bit here. I'll get the part it says. Like if you look here, it says use your deck as a PC because it is one, and they're using that KDA as like I think it's like a Unix Linux variation that they're using. And we've seen this before with like Samsung phones and different things like that, where you dock your phone and then you can use your phone like a computer, and it'll be similar to that, although this might be a little bit more powerful. But yeah, I personally wouldn't care about using Windows on this because I use Windows on laptops, etc. And I also think that if you use Windows, then you might run into some performance issues that you wouldn't if you were running Linux. I'm all for options though. I'm all for everyone picking what they want to do with things like that, and maybe we'll find people modding these Steam Decks to do many wonderful things. But I'll see what happens. I'm not going to rush out and buy one just now. My guess is that there is a chance that some of those options could be sold out and then come back into stock later. I'm not sure how many, you know, units they've got. But my guess is that the most expensive option or the middle option will sell out first, and the cheap one will be available. That's my guess. But the other thing that I want to talk about today, and this will interest some of you, not all of you, but anyone who's got a YouTube channel, anyone who's got a Twitch channel, Facebook streaming, that kind of thing, you might find this interesting. Do other game clients running Linux? Epic, for example. I'm not sure, Stephen. I'm not sure about that. I've got Epic Games. I've got Origin. I've got, what else have I got? That's about battle.net as well. In fact, I've uninstalled Epic Games right now. But I think most of them support Windows. Some of them support Mac. Linux is still kind of poorly supported, just like Mac as well, as far as only certain games work with it. Windows remains the best or the most popular platform for playing games. But I don't know is the answer to that. Right. So I want to show you some of the announcements yesterday from Elgato. Now, before I even look at this, I'm just going to say, generally speaking, Elgato make, you know, they're trying to create this whole streaming experience. It's why they've got these kind of studio configurators where you can basically put everything in your room. You know, you can get studio lights, you can get the desk arm, you can get the microphone, you get the webcam, you can get the mounts, you can get the, what do you call it, the air, not the air, what do they call it, the waves, to reduce the noise, reverb in the room and all that. They're trying to create this whole experience. But while some of their products are very good, they're also incredibly overpriced, in my opinion. Not all of them, not all of the products. I stand by how good their capture cards are, but I think for the price that, you know, the company charges for certain things, they're charging way too much. But what they're doing is simplifying everything. They're removing any kind of technical aspect, you know, the problems that people had with setting up something complex. Now, you can see, I'll just go through and show you what they've got. I'll start with the Stream Deck, which is what I have sitting here. Now, I've got the first variation of this, which is, you know, which I've just dropped. There you go. This just shows you, what the first version is like, because this shows you, what the first version is like, right? Because you can see it's got the cable plugged in. You can see this has just fell off. I think this was from my webcam, I'm not sure. So that's just fell off, but that's one of the problems with the first variation of this, is that you can't take the cable off, which they fixed in the XL and the Mini. But the second variation of this, they've improved that. They've got faceplates, etc. So the thing is, with this new version here, I can't see anything here that is really much more, I don't know, like what here is making it worthwhile to upgrade. The XL is worth upgrading because of, you know, the sheer volume of buttons. It's more customizable in that regard. But faceplates is not something I care about at all. Yeah, I mean, this just looks like a very basic variation. Maybe I'm missing something here, but it just looks like a very basic variation of the original Steam Deck. So for me, I would not buy that. I would buy the XL, personally. I realize faceplates is, you know, it's something that some people want, but it's not doing anything for me. It really isn't. I'm sorry, guys. Right, Wave XLR. Right, what's the price of this? Let's check the prices of this. £160. Right. Is that a good price? Is that a good price? I've not tried this yet, so I really can't criticize the product. I can't praise the product yet. But as far as price goes, it's maybe at the upper end for a solo XLR product. And really, if I'm paying £160, I'd probably want to gravitate towards an audio mixer, an audio interface that has more than one XLR port, etc. But they're trying to simplify everything. Adjust output, volume, crossfade between mic and PC mix. I mean, they've catered it towards streamers, obviously. I mean, one XLR input, why didn't they just add two? Why didn't they add two? I mean, I realise most streamers, it's just them. But if you've only got one XLR input, you're always going to be limited to what you can do. And I don't know, like I've had a lot of discussions with people about this. When I reviewed that mixer, I can't even remember the name of it, but I reviewed that mixer thing about 2 years ago, and it only had one XLR input. And people were like, well, how do you add a second mic? And you had to add a second mic through all these workarounds with cables, and none of them could really work out how to do it because you needed to use like auxiliary cables, etc. And what I say to everyone was like, listen, if you don't need the mixer thing, just get a different audio interface. Get one that has 2, 3, 4 or more XLR inputs. The one that I've got is 8. Now, it sounds like overkill, but even just now with me sitting here alone, I'm using 3 of them because I've got one microphone here, I've got this one plugged in, and I've got one that's for a lavalier mic. Now, granted, 3 is maybe overkill, but there's a lot of situations where 2 microphones do come in handy, where you're trying to record audio from a different area. Maybe you want to switch between your boom mic and then switch to your overhead mic. And that is something that always puts me off individual XLR inputs. I'd go with an audio interface if it had one XLR input, if it was portable and it was for traveling. But even then, you know, 2 XLR inputs would be good. £160, I don't think, I mean, it's not at a price point that would scare me away. I can see why some people would want this. I've not had a look at the technical specifications in that yet. Switchable low-cut filters, that's a nice wee bonus. Wavelink. Yeah, so they've got like nice software for it, kind of simplified it all for everyone. I'm not sure what the gain... Oh, okay, so the gain range... What have we got? 0 to 75 decibels. So the decibel range isn't too bad. I'm not sure how good the preamp is, because all preamps are not, they're not created equal. And that's the thing, you know, sometimes you can get lost in this. It's just like anything else. You can get lost in the specifications and you could say, well, that audio interface has got, you know, 60 decibels. That one's got 75. That must be better. But that's not the way it works. You know, I'm not an audiophile, I'm not a musician, but I know from using different audio interfaces that had the same gain range that some performed much better than others, not just from a volume gain level point of view, but also just from a quality point of view as far as how it picked up your vocals. I can see the appeal of this though. I really can see the appeal of this. There's the Wave 3 there as well. I can see the appeal of this. Yeah, I can see why someone would use this. So you would get the Wave XLR to control your audio. You'd plug it in with the Wave 3, perhaps, and then would you hook it up with one of these mic arms. Again, they're trying to do this whole experience. You can see there the Wave mic arm, the Wave mic arm LP. What I would say, and I'm trying not to be too critical, but if we look at the prices of these arms, and I like the idea that they've got, you know, a high arm and then they've got the low arm, it's more like a kind of monitor arm. If you look at the price of these, that's £90. And this one, £90. It's very difficult to recommend that, because you can get like something like this, the Rode, which in my opinion looks better made. It's lasted the length, you know, a long time, and it's only like £65. But also as well, see this part here, see the actual tripod thread, the 1/4" tripod thread. You know, they've used the 1/4" because it's more common, but really they should have went for a 3/8 or 5/8. What I'd say about all of their mounts, and that's, you know, someone who's got a few of them myself, is the mounts do the job. They're good, you know, for what they do. They're incredibly overpriced and they feel really cheap. They feel really cheap. They feel like they're going to break. And that's fine. If you look after it, that's fine. But really, when you're paying £90 for that and you're paying £90 for that, you really should be moving away, at least from an accessory point of view, you really should be moving away from the Elgato accessories and moving towards Manfrotto and kind of higher end photography gear. But again, I know what they're trying to do here. They're trying to tie everyone in so that, you know, when they're streaming, they're just like, I spend £2,000 on Elgato and that's me got everything I need, rather than have to investigate, well, you know, what is the best thing? And that's the thing, you know, I don't have the perfect setup. I'm not saying that I do, but it took me a long time to figure out, well, that was too cheap. It's not worth using that. And what I would say about their mounts, their kind of multi-mount system is, I was tempted to get it at one point, but what put me off with it is that it doesn't mix well with other photography gear. And also, they are charging 2-3 times what you can get, same quality-wise, on Amazon and eBay. So, again, I'm not saying they're bad because I've got them. They've done the job for me. They've been great for me. But you are paying that Corsair Elgato Premium. The blue boom arm. I think I've seen that one before, Viper. That one's quite good quality though. That one's quite high quality. Yeah. So the one the Viper man is talking about is it the Compass? Is that the one you've got? To me, that looks like it's higher quality, much higher quality than what you'd get with these. And I just know, you know, from using the tripod thread connections are terrible on these multi-mounts. They're really poor. They feel really cheap. They feel the kind of quality you would normally get with something with a £20, you know, Chinese type of one. Valve is frozen. Seems okay for me. But the blue one at that price range, I would say, granted this is designed for the Yeti, etc., but I would say that the Yeti is higher quality. Having not tested either of them, just looking at it, just, you know, checking specs, etc., I would say, generally speaking, the Elgato stuff, accessory-wise anyway, it's a very high premium for what you're getting, and it won't last as long as other photography gear. So the other thing that they've released here is a new webcam, 1080p at 60 frames per second, which makes sense. You know, this is for streamers. I'm streaming at 1080p right now as well, but I've got two webcams from like 5-6 years ago, which are 4K. So I'm surprised they haven't come out with something that maybe even did 1440p. It makes sense. If you're a little box in the corner, you only need 1080p. That does make sense. So this retails at $200, £200, I believe. £190 here in the UK, $200 elsewhere, or $199. It's Type C, I believe, and it's there, f2.4, focal length of 24mm. I've not seen the preview of this as yet. There you go, USB 3. I don't believe it needs software. I think it's UVC. Multi-mount via the industry standard 1/4" thread. Yeah, I'd have to look at this. I need to reserve judgment on this because a camera is something that, you know, is this going to be the same as the kind of higher end 4K Logitech webcams? Is it going to be twice as good as like the Logitech, was it C920? Also, at the kind of £200, at the kind of £200 range, you really get into the territory where you should get a capture card and like a Sony camera or a Canon camera. You know, you're kind of getting to that kind of price range. So I don't know whether it's worth it or not. I'll need to reserve judgment on that. But you can see that they're tying together all the different accessories here. Yeah, it looks good as far as settings go. It looks good, but I mean, it's always they are the Apple of streaming. Any order here? It's still saying add to wish list. Has it been updated on the Steam platform? Yeah, that's a good point, Viper. I never brought that up. The lack of microphone. Well, I've seen some other other webcams have come out and they've not had a webcam. They've not had a webcam. They've not had the webcam didn't have a microphone. I got there in the end. I've seen a lot of webcams come out. They didn't have a microphone and the reviewers criticised them for it. But every single microphone I've used in a webcam has been absolutely terrible. So for me, that isn't an issue because this isn't really designed for people that want bad audio. It's not like for your granny that's going to do a Zoom call. This is for people that are streaming. So I think the lack of a microphone is a good thing because there's no point having something in there that you're not going to use anyway. It's just another mic that pops up in your Windows settings. So for me, you know, maybe that sounds silly, but the lack of a microphone is fine for me because I'd rather have no microphone than a terrible microphone. And I've yet to have any microphone even in a, you know, a webcam that size, I've never had any that are good. They're always terrible. Always, like, you're right, Viper, they're always terrible. Not as, there's never even one you think, oh, I could use it in this situation. No, they're always terrible. So for me, that's, yeah, it's a good choice. I mean, I don't know if I would have preferred a kind of longer size one, I don't know, but there you go, there you go. So they've got the configuration set up there if you want to set it all up like that, but I don't know. I mean, I would kind of piece it together myself otherwise. And also, I wouldn't advise anyone who's game streaming just to rush out and buy 10 different things, the lights and this and that. Like, start, jigsaw it all together one by one. Start off, get your camera and get your lights, and then get a good mic, and then try and upgrade bit by bit. But like I was saying, with a lot of these, you know, with a lot of these kind of Elgato products, they're doing a really good job tying it all together and simplifying it and allowing you to control it all via, you know, things like the Stream Deck, etc. But at a certain point, some of the prices of these things are starting to get to a point where you should really go towards more high-end photography gear, which is also expensive, but it will last you a lot longer. Going to get the Elgato key light. Thoughts? Which one? Oh, the regular key light. So what's the easiest way to show you this? I will jump to, let me show you. Is that, oh, am I closed? There we go. There it is. So if I bring this over here, you can see that I'm currently lighting it here. So there's one light, and there is the other. Now, like I was saying, see, like these tripod mounts here, they're really bad. They're very bad. So you can see I've got them here coming down here, and they've done a good job. Get this sitting up here. Let me sit down. So they've done a good job. I better switch back to my main camera. So they have done a good job, these lights, and they're very easy to attach to your desk. There are some downsides to them in that you need your Wi-Fi kind of on to control them. Again, these lights were very expensive for what they were, but long term, they've worked out well. There are a few weak spots though. I find the actual tripod thread, both in the mount itself and on the actual light, terrible. Really cheap and nasty. I've honestly bought tripods that were like £20 that had better tripod connections, stronger tripod connections than that. You know, they've used a ball head that's like 50p worth of plastic. So from a build quality point of view, there's definitely a couple of weak spots. And on the light themselves, they've got a thread, and the thread doesn't seem strong either. But again, all that criticism aside, they've worked well for me. They continue to work well. They're very easy for me to control. I can turn them on and off. I can put them up like that, control them. I can switch them off again, on again, bring them back down. So, I mean, it kind of sums it up. They're expensive. There's a lot of the kind of cheap build quality in there, but they do the job, and they're very easy to control. And that's the thing, you know, that's the one thing that Corsair and Elgato, that's the one thing they understand. They understand that when you're game streaming, you don't want to be messing about with stuff. You don't want to be messing about trying to get different types of tripods and different things working together. You don't want to get lights to be manually switched on. They understand that you want to get these things streamlined. And that's why you know, the money that I spent on these lights, I could have got significantly better lights for the same money, or the same quality of lights for about a third of the price. But I mean, it seems like a gimmick in some ways, but the ability to control lights from here and from my PC or from a phone or tablet, it is worth it. One of the things that I've been looking to get, I nearly got it in the last, not that Amazon Prime sale, but I think the one before, around Black Friday. One of the things I was thinking about getting was the ring light, because I saw it was cheap. So I was thinking about getting the ring light, and what I was thinking about doing was getting a ring light and just putting it around here, around my overhead camera. My concern was that it was going to give you like a ring light, you know, actually on the desk. You know, that would show up sometimes. I might still get the key light. I like the idea of, you know, placing my camera in there, but it doesn't fit in with what I'm doing just now, because I've got my main camera there just sitting on top of my monitor. But I'm going to change all this setup. I'm going to change it around, and maybe I'll get that. You've got the green screens as well. But it's interesting to see. It's interesting to see the products that they've come out with. If I had to be quite critical about, you know, what they've come out with here, without trying any of these products. Well, I've tried the Stream Deck. Obviously, I've got that sitting here. My opinion of the new Stream Deck Mark II is that they haven't really done anything to, you know, to encourage me or anyone else with the first version to upgrade. There's nothing there to encourage me to upgrade. It is the smallest of increments. I realise, you know, they've got a better connection with the cable. I realise that they've got faceplates, but really there's nothing there that that I would go for. And again, it's, look, with this webcam, I'll need to try it out myself. I wouldn't rule out ever buying it myself just to try it, and then I could sell it or something. But you know, when you get to that kind of £200 range, which is what that's coming out at, £190 here in the UK, you start to think, well, what's my alternatives? And this is, you know, the webcam range is kind of weird, because you've got all these cheaper webcams, and then you get to a certain point, you know, like £100 or so, 120, 150, and then it kind of disappears almost into, then the next one up is like £700 for like conferencing software for big companies. So there's this kind of gap in the market for a good webcam. And there's a lot of benefits of webcam. You plug it in, it's small, you don't have to worry about a big camera. You know, even positioning the bigger cameras is more of a pain. But again, you're at that price point of £200. You could pick up an old Sony or an old Canon or Fujifilm camera. You match it with a capture card, an Elgato Cam Link or something. I would say for £300, if you look on, or even less than that, in fact, you could get a good camera from eBay CEX in the UK, and you could match it with a capture card, and you would get significantly better quality, video quality, than the webcam. I know it's not a like-for-like comparison though, and a webcam always has its place, you know, in certain situations like this. But really, the way that I always approach these things is, I've got a budget. If I buy used, I can save money. If I buy a camera instead of this, it might last longer. I'll get better quality for the same money. I always try and get the most for, you know, what I'm spending. One more question. I'm using a Razer webcam. Okay. I wanted to upgrade to a proper webcam for streaming, and would you recommend? I don't want to spend thousands. What's your budget, Viperman? What's your budget? Because budget dictates everything here. It really does. I will say I've never tested that Razer webcam. I think the reviews were quite mixed, and again, similar to Corsair, you know, kind of Razer premium. Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say. Actually, that you're probably at the point where you need to move up to a camera. I'm using a Sony A6500, which I probably should upgrade at a different point, or I should go to a camcorder or something. 500 maybe, a bit more. You'll see a lot of different recommendations for this, and it really depends on your setup. There's a lot of different things to take into consideration here. First one, what are you going to be recording at? Are you going to be recording at 1080p, 1440p, 4K? That is a primary concern. If you're looking to do 4K and record in 4K, you'll need to gravitate towards newer cameras, more expensive cameras, Panasonic GH4, GH5, things like that. If you're not, you might want to go for an older camera. And I looked into this a lot, and there's a lot of really good cameras you know, that were maybe £1,000 or £1,500 in 2015, and you can now get them for like 400, 500, sometimes less. You know, I've picked up some really good bargains with the cameras that I've got. The Sony RX10 Mark II that I've got here, it was sold as broken. It wasn't, it was mint, and it was £200, £210 from eBay when it was selling for like 900 new. Which granted, no one was paying that because the 3 and 4 was out, but you get my point. There are bargains out there. It was the same with the Sony a6500. I bought it at a time when, you know, the 6600 was about to be released, and there are some bargains out there. Now, I've streamed with a few different cameras in the past. I used to have the RX100 Mark III. I actually did quite a good little job, and these little RX100 cameras can be used for streaming as well. At 1080p, once you go to higher resolutions, they kind of burn up. What I would say though, is that you've got your budget, 500, 600, whatever. I would start looking at discussions as to what is the best camera for streaming. Now, what you'll see is that you'll see the kind of usual suspects. Cameras that were kind of high end a few years ago and now they're really good prices, or maybe cameras that are a good price. You'll see some camcorders there as well. But what I would say with regards to a camera for streaming is that you've got something else to take into consideration, and that's recording for a long period of time. Now, with your capture card, you're probably aware of this, that most cameras in Europe and elsewhere in the world as well, some regions, you're not allowed to record more than 30 minutes. But the big issue with streaming is that your camera is operational for a long period of time. So this camera here, the one that I'm pointing at, that can actually do 4K at 30, but if I record and stream at 4K at 30, even with continuous battery, because I've got the continuous battery pack thing, even with that on, eventually it will shut off because it will overheat. It will just overheat. But if I record at 1080p and scale it up to 4K, which is what I'm doing right now, well, what I do for my other videos right now, I'm just using 1080p. But if you've got a camera at 1080p, you might find it can record for 10 hours or 12 or, you know, forever, really. You can stream as long as you want. But that's the thing, when you introduce 4K into the equation with a lot of cameras, they overheat. And with some older cameras, even at 1080p, they'll overheat as well. It's an area where camcorders tend to be a little bit better, but the camcorder, there's not a great number of camcorders on the market, and they've got different issues when it comes to streaming as well. Your Steam Deck 512GB deposit is now reserved. Once inventory is available, you receive an email in order your reservation was made. This email will contain... Ah, nice. Nice. Well played. So is it available now? Is it available? It's still saying... It must be... you have to connect... I'm not connected to Steam on this browser, but it looks like you have to connect here and then log in for your reservations. Fair enough. That's good. Congrats. Congratulations. Are in order. Camera and lighting when indoors. Again, it's such an open. It's kind of an open discussion here, Paul, because it depends on the camera that you're using. It depends on how big your room is. It depends on where natural light is coming into the room. It really is a trial and error type of situation. Like in this room, I've actually got less light in this room than I used to have in my older room. There's only 2 windows there, bizarrely, in this room. Doesn't let in a lot of light, so I used to have a lot of problems in the last room where light would come in at many different angles. Oh, you don't have to do that, Vaporman. Much appreciated, but it's fine. You don't have to do that. Thanks. I always feel bad when somebody donates because I'm not looking for donations. I really need to disable that. So as far as lighting goes, the light that comes into this room is much less than it was before. Where previously it used to shower into the room even when I had the curtains up. But it really does depend on the room, and it depends on the camera that you're using, because I've got my light set up here. If I had to replace my Sony a6500 with well, what I've got here is the RX100 Mark 7. If I had to use this camera instead of that camera, then all of a sudden the lighting would look completely different. And then I'd have to go in and change all the settings and all that kind of thing. And I'll be honest, when it comes to color grading and setting up cameras for lighting, I am not the best. What I try and do most of the time, I'll change settings in the camera, like white balance and different things when I need to. But I generally try and go with auto mode and then just adjust the lighting to that, because it's easier to change the lighting because I can write those settings down. Whereas the camera, when it resets, I'm like, how do I switch this back? But that's based on me. Not having a clue about these kind of things. Well, I'll give you an example, Paul. I'll give you an example of what you need to do, right? If you can bear with me. Thanks, Viper. I appreciate it. It's really kind of you. Thanks, mate. Okay, so what I've got, so you can kind of see, apart from the Elgato lights, which I showed you before, there and there, I've got the Elgato lights there. So I'm going to switch those off. And then I'm going to switch off these. There you go. And I'm sorry for showing you my legs, but it is absolutely boiling today. There we go. So this is what it looks like without lighting. This is what it looks like without lighting. And I do apologise for showing you my old hairy legs, but it is so warm in here. The sweat is absolutely dripping off me. It looks like you've been attempting a lot of purchases. What should I do? Which purchases, Noah? So, to go back to your question, Paul, with regards to lighting, I'm not going to lie to you. The camera that you're using plays a big part. It really does play a big part as to what lighting you need to set up and, you know, how you set it up, etc. Now, I used to sometimes use the light above just to give me some kind of overlight, but I wouldn't advise that. It was a mistake. So try and get lighting from the side rather than above, wherever possible. But again, it depends on the camera, depends on the lighting. You can see I've got light coming into the room from this side. But just to show you, I've got my Elgato lights now. So there's the Elgato lights at the level that I had them before. I can put them right down. I can put them all the way up. And you can see I can kind of get overexposed at this point. You know, they're so bright. You know, it's so shiny on me now. Whereas if it's completely off, there's too many shadows. But there's a lot of shadow, like you maybe noticed it's quite shadowy now. So I normally have it set about this level, right? So I've got those lights, and then I put the backlights on, like this. So this one, get it right. This is just a little light that I just used for some green, like that. I need to replace that. And then again, for shadows, here, just set it up like that. So those lights there, those ones are just from IKEA, and I really should position them more against there. So those are from IKEA, nothing special. With regards to that little thing giving the green light, I want to replace those at one point with either some sort of light strip or with a Philips Hue bar. I've been waiting because I want to change the room around at one point, so that's why I've been holding back with that. That's just a cheap light that I've had lying around. But it's maybe hard to see, like so there's the Elgato lights off with the backlights on, and you can see that it's now shadowy here, whereas before it wasn't. It was kind of darker in the background. And that's the thing, I'm not an expert on lighting. I do sometimes get it wrong. Sometimes it doesn't look good at all. And it's quite hard. It's quite hard to get it right. One of the things I've found as well is that, like I was saying, I've got the lights perfect. Well, in my opinion, I've got the lights okay here, but whenever the lights are good there, they're not usually perfect for the overhead camera. So if I switch on my overhead camera, and this should be able to go here. So there's the overhead camera. So when I'm doing like an overhead shot, I'm doing like a product review or something, right? And you can see in the reflection, you can see the Sony camera there on the pole. So when I'm doing Is that a little bit off center a little bit? When I'm doing a product review, what I sometimes do is put the light up a little bit higher, just to make it a little bit brighter. But again, this is a problem with the camera, because sometimes when I'm reviewing something, it goes dark, a little bit darker when it's, you know, up close. So you try and get the right balance between both cameras, and, you know, just try and get it set up in the right way. I think what you need to do really is, you know, you get like a 3-point lighting system where you really want, you can have one facing you, then one at the side, another one at the side, and then some backlights. One of the biggest things I have done the last few years is starting to add lights in the background. I do think they do make your video kind of pop a little bit better. And that's something that I'd like to do a little bit more in the future. Just add some more colours in the background, just something to kind of contrast, so you've got a little bit kind of depth, I guess, to the video. If you're ever unsure about it, Paul, just give me a buzz on social media or something. I'll give you my feedback. But it really is trial and error. I'm not an expert on this situation. What I would say though is you do have to find something when it comes to lighting, and when it comes to all of this, recording and all this as well. You do have to find something that fits in with what you're doing, with your setup, with your budget, what you're trying to do. Every person's setup is unique, so you might be able to find someone on YouTube that's got a similar setup or might have a similar idea as to what you're trying to do, so you need to try and match that. But it is different. It might be different to what you're doing. And the reason I'm pointing that out is because another reason I went for the Elgatos is because they're portable, and they don't take a lot of room in the room. You know, they're not taking up a lot of space. And that's one of the things I've noticed as well. When I've went onto a YouTube video and onto a YouTube tutorial and they've said, just buy these lights, these are great. But then when I see them, they take up huge amounts of room. And I've got a very small room here, actually. There's not a lot of room behind this desk. So I need to work within the limitations of this room, which has completely changed what I'm doing with this room. And it's changing what I'm buying, how I'm setting everything up. But you'll get there. You'll get there. Right, guys. So if there's no other questions, I will call it a day there, because I think I've covered everything that I wanted to cover as far as the Stream Deck and as far as the Elgato products. So just to summarize what I've spoke about today, I've spoke about the new Valve Steam Deck, which now appears to be available for sale, and you can reserve it. So if you're looking to buy that, you can reserve it now. And I've also talked about Elgato's new Facecam without a mic, its new variation of the Stream Deck, and the Wave XLR. And I do think they make good products. I do also think they're kind of catering towards the entry-level side of streaming, certainly with some of the products. And no problem, Paul. Certainly with some of the products, I think they're gearing towards the start, kind of entry-level gaming streamers. But for some of it, it's really good. With the lighting, I think they've got some things right. Accessories, I would aim more towards the kind of professional gear myself, but there's pros and cons, I guess. But thanks for watching, guys. I do appreciate it. Many thanks for the wee tip there, Viper. I'll need to disable that because I honestly don't need you guys to tip me. But thanks for joining in. Hope you've enjoyed the stream. I will try and do some more streams soon when something relevant pops up and we can look at some tech, etc. But thanks for watching. For those of you who have ordered the Stream Deck, such as, well, I am, let me know how it goes. Let me know when you get it. Obviously, we're about 6 months out from when it actually comes out, but it'll be interesting to see how that actually performs. So I'll be checking out those reviews. So thanks for watching, guys, and until next time, take care.